My name is Johnny, and I'm one of the ethnographers on the Daphne project. And I'm going to share Alex's story. Alex was a 64-year-old woman with a learning disability who lived in a small care home. Staff described her as having a really bright smile and a warm personality. In the final few years of her life, Alex experienced increasing health inequalities and repeated hospital admissions. Eventually, a decision was made that meant that Alex would no longer go to hospital. Instead, she would be treated at home, where she later died surrounded by familiar people and routines. Before talking about Alex's care, it's important to understand who she was as a person. Alex lived in a small care home with 8 other people with a learning disability. She had strong relationships with the staff supporting her, and they spoke very affectionately about her too. Alex communicated with limited verbal communication. Her father said "good girl" to her growing up, so these words became incredibly meaningful to her, and they were the only ones that she said throughout her life. She had been very close to her father before she died, and her mother continued visiting as often as she could, although her increasing age made this more difficult. Alex enjoyed being around people, watching horror films, cuddly toys, and going into town. Many of these things she became less able to do as she was more physically unwell, but it was amazing to see how positive she was, despite her physical health problems that she was experiencing. In the last few years of Alex's life, her health deteriorated significantly. She had epilepsy, recurrent chest infections, swallowing difficulties, and problems with mobility and continence. Following a fall, she became less mobile and was no longer able to do the activities she used to enjoy, like trips out. During this period, Alex was admitted into hospital around 20 times in a year and a half. Staff commented on how happy she would be when she would return home, even the ambulance staff who would bring her. The staff in the care home said that unfortunately Alex had some very difficult experiences in hospital. For example, there were occasions where Alex was not supported appropriately with eating, drinking, or personal care, and at times, guidance around safe eating and drinking was not consistently followed. In contrast, staff felt Alex was calmer and more comfortable at home, where she was surrounded by familiar people, routines, and sensory comforts. One thing that stood out strongly was the commitment of the care staff because there was no funding for care home staff to accompany Alex in hospital. But still, some staff chose to visit her and provide care because they noticed that she was struggling and was vulnerable there. After repeated hospital admissions, professionals and family began recognizing that hospital treatment was no longer improving Alex's quality of life. So a best interest meeting was held involving healthcare professionals, Alex's mother, and the manager of Alex's care home. A decision was made for Alex to remain at home and receive support from palliative care specialists and community nurses rather than continuing with the hospital admissions. The staff at the care home said that this period was much more positive for Alex. She received coordinated support from the care home, the palliative care team, and the nurses. They said that the palliative care team were easy to access and very responsive and reassuring whenever they got in touch. Alex died at her home following infection and a large seizure. Her funeral took place and she was buried in the same place as her father, right next to him. For me, Alex's story was really important because it highlighted some of the inequalities that people with a learning disability can experience in healthcare settings. It also highlighted the importance of relational care, advocacy, and familiarity and collaborative decision making at the end of life. It reminds us that good end-of-life care is not only about symptom management, but it's about understanding the person, their relationships, what matters to them, and where they feel safest and most values.
There was the strong relationships she had with the care staff who supported her, and the real sort of the closeness that they shared. I think that the thing that sticks out to me was that the staff said that they'd go and spend time with Alex if they were having a bad day, if they were rushed off their feet, or if they were just feeling low, they'd go and sort of spend time, and Alex would request a hug off them, and yeah. So that was really nice to see that sort of closeness. Her health deteriorated quite quickly over like a 3-year period, and during I guess the second half of that, she was in and out of hospital very, very regularly. And I can't imagine what that must have been like for her. I know I spoke to the care staff about that a little, and they told me it was difficult sometimes in hospital. She didn't get the right care. Her personal care wasn't attended to. She wasn't able to eat because her nutrition plans weren't followed. She didn't have people around her which she loved, and she didn't have her normal sort of forms of entertainment. So that, I think, caused her quite a lot of distress. I think the main thing that I think I would have liked to have happened earlier was, I think, the best interests meeting that led to Alex being treated at home rather than hospital could have been organised earlier. When Alex did have this plan in place that meant that she'd be treated at home, she stabilised, and she was able to sort of take advantage of the expertise provided by the palliative care team, who were central in her care at that point. She was able to be surrounded by people who knew her really well, so she got the right food and nutrition, and personal care. So I think the last few months of Alex's life were happier because that meeting took place.
I work with the Better Care Before Death group, so we have a co-production team here at Kingston University on the DAPPLE project. We meet once a month with the Better Care Before Death group, and over the last few months we have been hearing stories from the ethnographers like Johnny, who came to our meeting to share Alex's story. And I think one thing that really stands out to us as a team is that the kind of questions that the group are asking can be quite different to some of the questions that perhaps members of the research team are asking. I think straight away the members of the group are really thinking about I think the relationships that person with a learning disability has, whether that's relationships with friends or with family, and how those people have been affected by that person's situation at the end of their life. And I think a really important part of the DAPPLE project is that we are involving people with a learning disability throughout. We're bringing these stories to them, to the group, for them to be able to reflect on and react to, and for us to be able to learn from those reactions. And it's been really interesting hearing from them and what they've had to say about things.
Johnny, how did her friends feel when she started feeling unwell and she was no longer there with her friends? I was just wondering if they wondered why Alex was disappearing and then coming back, because sometimes it can be confusing.
Yeah.
1 minute you're there and then next minute you're not there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
What was Alex like towards the end of her life?
When she was ill, did they speak to the family? It's
Yeah.
important to speak to the family and the patient, isn't it?
When she was in hospital, why didn't the doctors and nurses just ask her what food she could have instead of giving her ones that she couldn't have?
Was the special care nurse involved, was it, at the hospital?
Why did not the hospital staff did not give any personal care? That's the personal care. They should really give personal care for that person. Not very caring and stuff like that. To the end of the day, that they're human, like us, like people with learning disabilities and autism. Is that human? We are people. We're not gonna be pushed away, and that's not very good.
When I've been in hospital, Sunny, unless my carers come from the care agency to support me in hospital, I never got the right support in hospital because the nurses are too busy and sometimes they're not trained to look after for someone with a learning disability. So unless the carers come every single day to support me doing personal care,
I'd have to say overall the story itself is quite upsetting.
Yeah. Yeah. Which parts did you find upsetting, Lewis?
So obviously the last bit, like hearing that she died whilst having a long seizure, and also the number of times that she had to go in and out of hospital, because as I worked on average, it was like she was going in like every 37 days.
Yeah, it's always sad, but it would have been better if we got like the people that know her from the care home and the hospital. I know they didn't have the money for that, but it'd be better if she had people that knew her very well. Maybe that would have made a bit of a difference of when she was going through the care of the hospital.
When at the end of life care, did Alex, have like a will? You know, like a will where they maybe have like some money or something. Did she have something like that before she died?
How many people were at the funeral did you?
There were about 60 people at the funeral, and there was one person with a learning disability from the care home where Alex lived.
Why did only one person with a learning disability go?
Did Alex have a good send off, and any speeches? Any speeches done as well? You know, when people died, they did they sometimes they always forget about that person, but they should really talk about their lives and their memories and stuff like that. Did anyone do that? Like, you know, when a couple of months down the line, talk about Alex.
And quite enjoyed spending time with her. I was like somebody who brought people closer together.